stop. And so I think Bishop comes as a faithful warning in these last days to let black folks know we ain't got much time. And I appreciate him, and you know, and I know when Bishop steps out there, his life is on the line. Amen. I mean, because I seen when we were sitting at that table, and when all them special police and ATF, they shut that hotel in front of that hotel down, you would have thought that Osama bin Laden was in the hotel. And I never forget the look on Bishop's face while they was questioning Bishop kept eating. And he didn't even look up until he got ready to look up. And he looked up and he looked at him like that. And I said, man, that was a lot of class and a lot of style. While they was sitting there talking crazy, Bishop never looked up. He just kept on eating what he was eating. And then he said, yeah, man, I help you. I mean, just, you know, and then what they did was they really brought attention to us. So everybody in the hotel that was around the hotel and in that restaurant, they started coming up, who you guys? You know, what y'all doing here? And so, I mean, it was, that trip was, it was a trip. I mean, it was, you know, but I'm always, you know, Brother COKELY, he's another warrior, you know, in the movement. And it's just some brothers in town that refuse to sell out. I mean, and so we there, like I said, y'all, I mean, y'all should be proud to have a pastor like this. My mother belongs to the CME church over there on 109th and Low. And she was telling me about Bishop about 10 years ago. And she was like, he did some kind of mentoring program at her church. And he's like, you need to come here, you need. And I said, well, you know, when she showed me, you know, his bio, I said, well, this is like all these other preachers. Little did I know that I would meet him face to face later on. And so, but like I said, I'm glad to be here. I'm also glad to be on the right side of history. You know, when the deal goes down, you know, because I have to look at it like this, you know, I got a 5-year-old son. If we don't do something now, I might well buy some chains and put them on him now. You know, that's where they headed. So I'm willing to put my life on the line. Like if Bishop can put his life on the line, and Steve can put his life on the line, COKELY, Brother Keith and this brother, and all these faithful brothers that when I see them with Bishop, you know, then who am I to say that I can't put my life on the line? So I hear Bishop say, if I don't go, who will go? You know, if not me, then who? And so, you know, I'm just trying to hurry up. I'm trying to talk to Brother Steve get ready. Okay, without any further ado, they call him the Boule Buster. I'll let them explain that to you. They call him the naming the names guy. They call him Baba. They call Brother Steve. Well, I'll let him tell you a lot of the things they call him, but he's famous for busting out the secret society of the black fraternity that was around the country. That I'll let him tell y'all about that. And Steve went in there and got the information and opened up black folks' eyes that black folks didn't even know that this existed from 1904 to today. So without any further ado, Brother Steve. All right.
All right, thank you all very much. I know this has been a long day for everybody. This is bigger than a stand. Right, okay. All right. I really appreciate you all accepting some inspiration and guidance to spend a few minutes with a brother that you don't know nothing about, you know, and you know, you say, let this brother come here and got about 4 teeth in his mouth, what can he be up to? Maybe be sitting around here on a Sunday night. And either of you cameraman, if I put something up there and you didn't get it yet, just let me know so I can hold it, so we can get things. So the church can look at certain things that I'll offer as evidence of the fact that there are a few people who take advantage of the majority of the people, and much of what they do functions in a secret or clandestine manner. And part of what enhances their ability is their secrecy. The fact that no one knows they exist makes no one responsible for their collective undermining of our people. This particular group, One Black, that I'll talk about, is 100 years old. They connect themselves to some whites, which is 170 years old, and they connect themselves to some other whites who go back to the Middle Ages and all of them are anti-God forces. If there's anything that you would understand what I do for our community in whatever form we can get the chance to clarify, I am responsible for finding what we call the core of negativity. And we have penetrated, if you could imagine a series of circles within circles, we have penetrated these circles where evil is rewarded and honored. And for the exploitation that we have received in cooperation with other people of color, we have a very cancerous problem, and quite frankly, it can be focused on in a mental concept and in an operational concept of something called white supremacy. Now, if I say KKK, y'all know what that means, right? If I said IMF, would you know what that meant? Would you know that IMF would be as white racist as KKK? But for some reason, they would rather tell you about the KKK, who own no banks, no insurance companies, don't have no major media, and obscure World Bank International Monetary Fund that make money tight for our people, make loans difficult for our people, make community investment impossible for our people, make gentrification possible for our people. And these people, in some cases, these people in Washington, D.C., they're 3 blocks from an all-black community, none of whom know who they are. But if you were to see Paul Wolferson, who heads the World Bank, and if you were to see Paul Wolferson see me, he'd say, oh, boo-boo, there's that COKELY. Because for the people who are in this core of negativity, we have accepted responsibility to put pressure on them. That maybe they perceive themselves to be Goliath, but we're always reminding them that David is within their reach. We don't ever want them to think that what they think is so absolute, so evil, so grand, so royal, that could never be defeated, contradicts the law of what goes wrong. And in every form, if we were to accept the principle of you reap what you sow, and if we reap what you sow is true, and one compiles years of ugly sowing, then somewhere the seed gonna come due. Now, through whom and when will it manifest? And if you believe it will never happen, then what you believe has a crack in it. Do you have faith that if people fail in their opportunity to rule fairly and equitably, that they will be punished and will be robbed of that opportunity when others who seek to be, is a dangerous word, responsible, rise to accept this responsibility, to replace those who lost their right to rule. The Muslims say eye for an eye, and the principle is sound. Even the atheists say, what go around, come around. Every spoke on the wheel has its day at the top. There's a law involved in all of this that actually is higher than man law. Now, men will try to take the weak and make them think that's all that matters. We consider ourselves above law because in white law, you can rob a black person of their land legally. So we don't use law as a measurement of somebody's value. I obey the law, where the law will give some people an advantage. Somebody say, well, what they gonna do to Michael Jackson? I said, do what they did to Roman Polanski. You know, you might not know, but the man who won Best Director Award in the Academy Awards in 2003 was a man convicted of child molestation who fled to Europe. And when the Academy Award came, they talked to him live from Europe on a split screen. They didn't say, child molester, we're gonna take your award. We didn't say we're gonna do you like Michael Jackson. They said, congratulations. Marv Albert wore women's clothes and a bra and a wig and raped a woman in a Hyatt hotel. And the Pritzker family of Chicago made that woman he raped shut up, covered up. Where's Marv Albert today? He's in the locker room. He's doing NBA games. But he raped a woman What about the white guy chopped up a guy and put him in the water? Was found not guilty of murder. Come on now, we're not going to say that man's law is the law, but man will make you think it's so. White man has waited all his life to be greater than God. That's why they manipulate the weather. That's why they try to compel and subjugate human behavior. You were warned that something would rise, but nobody wanted to explain in what form. And then if it be the response, nobody would ever make you think that it was the little people's job and not those who we call have a little, want some more. Because the have a little, want some more have no terms. They'll use a term in politics they used to call it, cut us in or cut it out. I used to work for the mayor of Chicago. I was chief of staff for a black woman alderman for 8 years. I was the chief researcher on the city council committee on rules. I've lectured at every major university in this country and many more minor ones. Oh, I'm pretty strong in about 70, 80 cities in America, and I look quite obscure. Part of what enhances our ability to be effective with the victims is that we are underestimated. And we accept that. We accept that as why it is that we will win. Because in their arrogance, and I'm going to tell you all something if y'all promise not to tell on me. Never before in the history of America have white folks been afraid every minute. They don't know if when they go to the mall, they don't know if when they're at the concert, they don't know if it's when they're in the plane or at the airport. It appears as if around the world, people whom help these people are getting in trouble. Somebody is known to have helped America, people seem to want to punish them. Because the residue of what was sown is building a sentiment that time has come due. We were the rulers and the bearers and the birthers of this planet. But something we did made us fall from grace. Maybe we got too deep into the gold. Maybe we were too into the pyramids and the afterlife and let someone slip up on us on this life. And we didn't do what was our mission or our destiny. I take an analogy of that our early ancestors were very good at knowing the stars. And we call that the people who came to the earth. Why did they know about this and that? Because this and that was the neighborhood. Why when America came, that they teach our children that they bought New York for $24 and a beads with a group of people who ain't had no store? What would $24 mean to some Hudson Bay original people who ain't got no supermarket? What would they need with a pair of beads? Why, when they said how much, they say, I can't sell it, it ain't mine. It's Mother Earth. But the other guy said, and this is very important when you do research about the origin of things, I know you have a biblical explanation for how things started, and I can respect that. And what's important is that no matter which of those formulas you use, you're still going to end up having to go to what they call Africa. Now, the book might say a different place, but there's no evidence that it could have been any other place than a place where your people were. Now, to pull off this act of superiority in times when facts couldn't be substantiated, they created something called myths to supplant for things about themselves they couldn't explain. So we just recently had things taken. The myth was that they gave gratitude to people who they stole from. It's a myth. We just left Columbus Day, where you ain't nobody till I discover you. And the people who were here were more advanced than the ones who showed up. But they pay people to be off that day. We're off. Nobody works on things taken. And to make sure people celebrate the killing of a people, they pay you extra for going along. Now, God asked me to ask you, which one of you will be so into preventing a Holocaust that one day you will stand up and take the money they gave you for being off on another man's murder and throw it back? Now, when that happens, when you start hearing around the country that people gave it back, all of a sudden the other side is going to say, oh, boo-boo. Something is going on. Now, you know the king, he used to have a castle, and to protect himself, if he was doing bad stuff, he made a little canal of water and he put alligators in it. And that really was helping the king for a while, but an oppressed people will eventually figure out how to whoop that alligator. All right? Therefore, the king figured out that the moat to the castle couldn't help him overcome a people who had had enough. So the king developed something. I want you to know how things started. The king developed something called social work. I want you to think about that. I asked the people last night, why do you think they pay the people so much to watch alcoholics? Because maybe they could get so drunk one day, they go downtown and disrupt the Sears Tower. Or whether it's on, you ever heard of a revolution amongst methadone people? They make sure that the people that they're watching don't get up to the control factor. This is not about educating the children. It's not about good housing. It's about control. Ain't no more complicated than that. Say, why ain't they educating? Because they never meant to. They only want to keep them tied up for a long period of time. Make sure don't nobody catch up with the game. It's just supposed to keep it going, and keep the conflicts down. As long as there's no conflict, hell, we got a problem. When you're benefiting from exploitation. So way back in the beginning, there was this myth, and I will tell you, I'll show you a couple of stories you can look up, that to this day, whites, and I'll show you a Library of Congress research, and I'll show you some more white archaeologists discuss why they have been unable in 2003 to genetically link the white population to any other race of people. This is important. When I said something about people coming to the earth, I also think about something about people coming out of the earth. And I thought about their preoccupation with the shadow and Plato, which is indicative of being in a cave. And this shadow meant that they were not familiar with light. So it made seeing a shadow significant to them. And if you check evidence of their origins, they knew nothing of a God. So they secretized the name of God, came up with riddles and tetragrammations and 72s and the number 4s and all kind of words to make sure that people didn't catch up on something they couldn't quite figure out. And then you got problems where, say in Masonry, where black men sought recognition from white men who were actually imitating black men in the first place. And that kind of let them know we didn't figure it out. Why would George Washington, Ben Franklin, and all the other guys put a pyramid on the money and none of them ever saw one? They never saw one. But they figured that one day they would tell the people that they did it. But that meant a series of things would have to happen to make them tell that story. One, you probably had to get rid of the ones who did do it.
All right.
Could they pull that off? Well, if you don't go to a casino, you might not see many of the other group they wiped. Don't say they won't do it, they already have. And they did it in a way that we cooperate and celebrate the holidays that made it so. In fact, a holiday cost the government $40 million. So it isn't just that they made up the lie, but they spent $40 million to protect. They got Columbus Day sales in the paper. Playing, got ships, children drawing them, and there's even discrepancies about all of that. They created another myth in Europe to trick some of the whites to come over here They told them that somewhere off the coast of what is now known as Georgia, that there exists somewhere down in the water evidence of white superiority. Atlantis. They just made it up because it wasn't so. But they had to tell some people in Europe that that was true to get them to come over here and help out in taking the land. Now the problem comes is when the adults cooperate and the children get confused watching the adults say, this ain't true, but I'm gonna do it anyway, and they get confused.
Right.
So remember that. When you look at your children and you want them to accomplish a certain goal, think about what you showed them about how it pays to cooperate. And that's very important. In these schools, they make you take shots to get in now. Even at the colleges, they make you take shots. None of my babies have ever had any shots at all, ever. Because there's something wrong with those shots. But they made people believe they were okay. They shot them soldiers up with some stuff that when they come back, it's going to be worse than that other thing they gave them, Persian Gulf War syndrome. They didn't admit to that till the day before they sent the next group. Ah, man, they gone. And you know they took all the Marines out from over there, and all them little people thought they was going to college for free.
Right.
Don't know nothing about fighting. They over there getting ambushed and whipped up. But you know what? I bet you if you stood in front of the local recruitment office for the U.S. military right here in Dalton, I bet you could stand there all day. I bet you 9 to $1 don't one person walk in there. Now, what is happening with the American military that not one person, recruitment is zero. Nobody want to be that now. Because now they know America going to work you into something even when there's nothing to work you into. They going to make some trouble. This is an arrogance. This is a moment in time. We are, I thank God for the right that I'm standing in the land where the greatest of all the whites came to be. This right here, where we are in this land, is where the greatest of all the whites have come to be. But like the Tower of Babel, America and France, they can't hear each other. They're taking away French fries and they playing games with the wine because the French white and the American white can't hear each other anymore. The German and the British and the American get together and everybody come to protest against them. They up at the Queen House. There ain't no such thing as no queen. Well, one day Prince Charles, so-called, came to South Central, and man, I was standing there with a stick. Let me see one of you niggas bow. I'll hit y'all with this stick. Check this out. I work for the mayor of Chicago, right? So one day, this is honestly it's true. The King of Sweden was coming to Chicago, and they wanted to bring him in Midway Airport, King Olaf, so-called. They always put so-called in there, because this is a king for me, this is a prince, this is another king, this is another king. I don't know nothing about that other thing, so I don't have no honor to no false nothing. I don't know who crowned them, you know. And so the king comes in, so-called, and everybody landing, and there's a certain part of Chicago, I didn't understand, it's called Andersonville. It's up North Clark, like a 40. I didn't know nothing about that, but that's like, we got to take the king up there because that's where all his people's at. So we at the airport, and there was a brother, Antonio Dickey, the photographer for the city. Worked for Harold Washington, did the famous photos of Harold. And I look over, and they're snapping pictures, and I look over and see the city photographer with his camera down. I said, brother, what you doing? He said, well, the king's people told me I didn't have a right to shoot the king in the photograph. I said, brother, what city are we in? He said, Chicago. I said, who paid your salary? He said, the mayor. I said, man, you better get your way over there and shoot them pictures. Can't no king tell you what to do in your land. Let's see you been up, you know. You ever seen when you open the door and they run through? You know, I'll stop them and say, hold on, this is going to let my family through. You know, or you go to hold the door and they don't want to touch it, so they slide through the door. It's like you held it for them. Little things, you know. They drop something, they wait for you to pick it up. And they test you all the time. Sometimes they say something bad about somebody you know to see if they can get you. Hey, what's up with your boy Ferry Can? You know, somebody, I see your boy Mike is at it again. You know how they do. When you're at the job, they don't test you. You know, and it don't matter. You know, one day I was at Georgetown giving a speech, And it was NAACP sponsored, a little student group, and there were about 35 whites. So in the beginning of the program, I said, let's start off this with a game called Where Do You Come From? So I started with some of the Africans. I said, where y'all come from? And they was naming Somalia and Ethiopia, and they, you know, and then I asked the whites, and out of 35, we had 29 different answers. And that was important for the Africans to see that they were still not sure. Some said Mesopotamia, the Garden of Eden. Some said Israel. Some said, I mean, they had all kind of whereabouts. But we can say that in the research context, they still have not been able to link them. You know, they were going 8 white man. It's not true. It just doesn't happen like that. And so, in very learned ways, they go through this, and they don't have a way to explain it yet. They will. I'm sure they'll come up with it in the end. This is a flyer of a lecture that I gave at a African Center school in Oakland, California. And the key phrase here is how I think about how we'll win, and it has something to do about pawns linked together. And if any of you play chess, I suggest that if you know how to play, start the game off a certain way, there's a way that the pawns can win the game. So I'm a little guy. I only have a game plan for little people. We call ourselves the victims of the greatest. And these are some of the institutions and organizations that take advantage of us. Gas. Now, I see here what gas is. It's about 40, 50 cents more on the West Coast, and the gas sitting right over there in the water. And it costs more right there than they do to get it all the way over here. But it don't have to cost that at all. It doesn't have to be what it is. But they choose to extort in a way. Now, he used to have to break up Exxon and Mobil. After he paid all the community people, he was able to put the same thing back together again. He was able to merge. In fact, we're in an era where we are witnessing the world consolidation of white power. This is where we heard about Europeans centralizing under a European parliament. I think there's a biblical attaché for that. David Rockefeller came up with something called the Trilateral Commission. This is the United States merging in with Canada, merging in with Mexico, they call that NAFTA, and then merging in with all of South America to make what he calls the Council of the Americas, and they will one day all vote for one president. And then in Central Europe, the Western Europeans, France, England, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, Sweden, Switzerland, merged with the East Europeans, East Germany, Hungary, Romania, Bosnia, all of that is now all one. And on the other side of that continent is Soviet Union, which was all really all together anyway. Now they're all united. It's Bush and Putin together. What is making all of the whites centralize? Fewer banks. Bank One is National Bank of Detroit, Bank One of Columbus, Ohio, and First National of Chicago. Amoco, Standard Oil of Indiana, merges with BP, British Petroleum. Chevron merges with Texaco. Exxon merges with Mobil. Now, these structures here are how they keep everybody quiet. They give them money. Foundations, they give them money. I'll slip down to this. Only people with a purpose make a plan. Your purpose can never be for sale. You can't sell somebody your reason for being. Or if you get to be it with them, that's just on the road to what it is. So you got to keep up with the process by which one shows the difference between what we call a protest, and I don't know if I want to say it. It's Sunday night. I ain't gonna say it. But it's a different, anyway, I'll show it a little later. So there's centralization going on. They have a worldview. On the boards of directors of these things are predominantly white males, a few white women, and one or two African people. Just one or two. Just enough to say that we are inclusive, to make everybody feel they could have been either one of them. You know, I know Colin Powell personally. I don't think he that bad of a guy personally. I know he don't want to do everything he do with Bush, but I also know if he had wanted to, he could have been the president. He was the most popular Republican, but it was his wife. You know what his wife said? What did his wife say? What'd she say? She said, do not, because they will kill you. That was deep. Alma, that's his wife's name. And she had a little problem with Valiums, and they were starting to leak it out. But what does that mean when good people get harmed for trying to take more responsibility? So worse people get to do it. Bush is skull and bone. Bush is as stupid as Mayor Daley is. I mean, these are two stupid white men. I'm sorry, sister. Thank you, sister. And it scares me because it's obvious that they aren't the real people running it, because they don't exhibit the ability to do such. You know, they admit that Reagan was pretty sleep there for a while. And when they finally showed this little movie on Showtime the other day, they ridiculed the fact that he had Alzheimer's while he was in office. And I kept my mom for 4 years with that Alzheimer's. That can be a very degrading, degenerating process. And I will say that we too, as a community, need to have some Harambe House senior citizens reflection places, because we're giving them away to other people. And I gave up running around the country to stay home with my mom, because I couldn't imagine any other way, but I could see how someone could take advantage of somebody who has that, and our parents, our grandparents go through it. And they might use the bathroom on the floor or put the food in the closet, and it has to be all right. But we got to be able to have that tolerance level to serve ours in that same way. So there's a group that guards the group that does the stuff. I will tell you that over the course of time, thank you, brother. Over the course of time, they killed some people for the evil people to get a chance to take over. They tended to kill people. Some of them were white, and some of them were black, but they appeared to me to be somewhat charismatic. Extraordinary white, extraordinary black. I mean, I wasn't into George Wallace, but George Wallace was a white charismatic. He excited white people. Norman Lincoln Rockwell, he was an American Nazi. He incited white people. He would sit down on an Herb Cupson show with Malcolm X, talk to Malcolm nasty. But they shot him in the head and killed him. They shot Wallace, put him in a wheelchair. They shot John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, knocked them out of office so that the Bushes got to do what they didn't let the Kennedys do. They killed the two Kennedys, and the other one went down in a plane crash. And so they let the Bushes get that, but they didn't let the Kennedys get it. Even took the other Kennedy down when he was going to run for senator in New York. Took him down, and you may say, well, that's pretty, probably an accident. Think about that Senator Wellstone in Minnesota, who the reason the Senate is split 51-49 is because one guy died in a plane crash, and the Republican took his spot. Now, do you think they would do that to advance what they're about? If they're evil people. See, I would say to all my people who believe that there are powers greater than evil, that we're going to have to materialize in some form to come to some collective conclusions about things, because evil is like a cancer. It's malignant. It grows. And you know, you can go to the doctor. You got to come up with the right kind of doctor. You know, you go to a doctor and you say, you know, my foot is hurt, and somebody sends you a dentist. They sent you a doctor, but it's the wrong science for what you need. Now comes this other decision. Excuse me, Mr. Brother, it appears as if you have a malignant cancer. Now I can offer you Tylenol. It will subdue the pain, or codeine number 4, or whatever. oxidorian or whatever they giving these people. But it's still malignant. So malignant means it's doing what? It's growing. Now at some point to stop it, you're gonna have to kill it. Now, this is a hard thing to think of. But if you don't kill this cancer, it will eat up the living parts of your soul. It's a serious thing. I don't believe Harold Washington died of a heart attack. But I know he was a charismatic black man. 99% of all black people in Chicago voted for one man. Jesus didn't get that score. And you know how they threaten the people, hey, you keep messing around, they're gonna do you like Martin King. So they want the children to think that if you help other people, that somehow your life should be in jeopardy. Because evil doesn't seem to like good. So they tend to react differently. We ain't never assassinated nobody who ever did anything to us. Because for whatever it is in that compassion of what we have to offer, we have not understood the responsibility of retaliation. Because if it does mean you reap what you sow, then who is responsible for delivering? Some are built for the mission. I myself, I couldn't be on a beam on the 4th floor trying to rivet a pipe to make a house. Couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I would be out of what I do. But I do what I do. Now, I ain't gonna get into whatever that is. I help a lot of African people. Many times African people need help and they can't call the police. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I had a black guy in Washington. I'm striking I have a tape up here to plot to destroy black education. It's still around Onion Palmer at the Garvey School in Los Angeles. He got a school, he got 500 students paying $500 a month. I look down, that's $250,000 a month. By the 5th day of the next month, your check got to clear. Well, your child is staying in school. One man walked over and said, I want to buy your school for $1 million. And after 4 months, he got $1 million. After 8 months, he got $2 million. Somebody said, I want to buy your school for $1 million, and if you don't sell it to me, I'm going to rough you up. Now, ain't no black man going to call no FBI. If you call LAPD, they ain't going to understand. But sometimes you have to put people in place of capability such that they can touch the other side and say, I don't think you want to do that. But touch them. Might be when they come to the restaurant down the street from their huge thing and they just want to be out amongst their people to feel the reward of being who they are, and you're able to touch them. And in the cities where we are, we spend our time making sure that in representing righteous people in our neighborhood, that we can touch the other side. They need to know, you know, like when the lights went out in New York, as equality. All the rich, no matter how rich, were no better off than the poor. So I be looking for equal moments. Now, this could be Harriet Tubman, and I could have said go down Moses. That don't mean everybody gonna get it, and that don't mean everybody going. All right, but I do know Sister was strong enough to hurt the people who left and then, you know, got shaky. You know, she said, she set them down. So it will take in the front of our line people of extraordinary capability. They must in fact be selfless characters. And to pull off this change for it, they will get no glory. I'll say that again. To pull this off, those who will arise for doing it, they will get no glory. But equally, they'll feel no pain. So you become non-vibratory. There's a role for emotion. But the ones who have to arise to resolve what has risen amongst them will have to have a moral capability that when the score is tied, they got something extra in the bank to pull it off. And I take a virgin before I take a whore. Now I say that because many times when you go and people feel victimized, they look for what they consider greater people to pull it off. But I want them to know the power of being a virgin. They might not have all the answers, they might not know about all the groups, but they just might have a clean moral bank that when we down on runs, the extraordinary thing falls on our side. That's the thing that we could do. And we need to protect the virginity in our people. You might be holding. I'm going to tell you something else. White people are very interested in genius black children. They want to get them to their spots because they know these are the ones who will figure out a science to make more happen for their own, but if only the other side could sell them ambition. We could give you something in our kingdom. You know, one white guy told me, he said, Steve, we would have killed you long time ago, but we respect your brain. We'd rather recruit you than kill you. But we'll have to make you succumb, and you would beg for your life that you would sell your brains to us. And of course, I'm a lifer. Lifer means they don't try to convince me not to do what I do. I explain that only I have the right to break my journey. They have no power and no authority over the pursuit of the journey. Only a weakness in me can make it not happen. I make that claim. So they try to convince those around me. Some they think are yet to make up their mind, then they will make weakness in them. When I worked for the mayor, they had decided that, I was to write speeches for Mr. Farrakhan while I was working for Mayor Sawyer. I did it because I know a lot about big money. So when people need a speech about utility or the world or world politics, I'm a guy who has the facts to back up their conversation. So I've helped a lot of varying people. If you agree, see, this is where there's a danger in our neighborhood. One of the things in the plan is to have a plebiscite. Boy, did God not show me the place where we can have the plebiscite. The plebiscite is a large coming together of people to find common interests. Like, what are we for? Like if I made this a board and I started at the first row, said if we want to make change, what would you like to see change? And we made a list that incorporated everybody, and we might say, well, number 1 and number 57 and number 106 are the same, so we can collapse them into category 1. We might end up coming up with 9 categories of what we agree to, and we might have an agenda or a plan. And that would happen if we had a plebiscite, a coming together to derive a consensus. I saw a plebiscite in my lifetime. Brother Lou Palmer, who was a black writer in Chicago, lost his job when he wouldn't write a story to say that the assassination of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark was not good and positive. And he gave up his job to not succumb to what he knew not to be true. And he ended up with a loose notebook and a this and a that. But when it came time to have a coming together, it took a certain type of personality that everybody could accept as what we call a geller. A geller is somebody who can find commonality in various factions. So everybody believed in Lou as a man who sacrificed for what he believed in. It wasn't what he got that made it so, it was what he gave up that qualified him to be the one that everybody would submit votes to, that resulted in from 50 down to 10 on who blacks wanted to have to be the one candidate for mayor. Now, the other side is pretty slick. When one want to do it, they put 4 more in there. So, but we didn't have that problem because wouldn't nobody dare be in after 70-something thousand people voted on it. Because from where would they get the consensus to come forward? So then it got down to 10, then it was down to 3, and they put out ballots, laundromats, grocery stores, all over Chicago on those 3, and Harold Washington won. And at one night at Bethel AME Church, because the church seemed to be a good place that people were willing to come together in, and because it was a church, it prevented certain type of foul activity in context. Broke the tape player here the other night. I think it's about an $8 tape player. I might be able to get another one after tonight. At least worth 10. But Harold Washington ended up the person selected, and on that night, being the one that everybody selected, he did not accept the request. He made a demand. He said, I'll be your candidate if you register 50,000. I'll be your candidate if you raise $1 million. I'll be your candidate if you do X, Y, and Z. And they registered 287,000. Over 50. They raised 6 million and not 1 million. And everybody then could kind of feel something special was going on. Then here comes that extraordinary thing. In December 21st, it was 72 degrees in Chicago. Look at the weather leading up to the election of Harold Washington, and you will see that he had a chance to use that extra bank so that cold didn't walk us away. See, they got precinct captains who got jobs. To keep the job, they knock on the door. But when the weather's bad, the people with no job but inspiration sometimes can't beat the ones paying the bills. Pragmatic versus the inspiration. So when the weather got right, things got even. I would also like to say this on another side, that the Senate is split 51-49 and they're all white. The House is split, that 435 is split only 8 votes on one side or the other. Now I would suggest to you the fact that when you look around, notice how they're equalized not by a conflict with you, but their rivalries with each other have split them 50-50. It's almost like something that's going to open up that you're going to walk through. Now, I used to tell people now, we say go down Moses, or we say get down to the Red Sea. Don't you doubt it and try to figure out how it's going to part. You just be there, so when it opens up, you can get across. All right? And you might say, how the hell are they going to do that? But then that might not be what you're asked. You might be just asked to get across if it opens. Right. So that'll take faith. Now, let's see if I can put some earthly things up here. I like people who I associate with to know certain things, and I want them to know about the giants of the other side. So I ask them to do some simple things. I like them to know who's big in the Fortune 500. I would like our people to know who are the big ones in industry. Now at the little African Center School in Washington, D.C., where my daughter goes, I teach the 4th graders foreign policy. Now my daughter's in 6th grade, she be at the 12th grade level, and this is a school full of extraordinary children. They are just super turned on. And all around the country, many of these African Center schools or community-controlled schools or homeschooled children taken away from the Columbuses and the things taken are doing extraordinary things. And we are getting control of our children. But we teach the origin of American foreign policy is that some people came from Europe, conquered the people, and when they conquered them, they made a government, and then they came up with a policy. That's the origin of American foreign policy. That's what we want a 4th grader to know, that somebody came from someplace else and imposed a policy that, yes, was foreign, because it didn't reflect the values of the people who were the majority. But we would want our people to know. Now, General Electric is one of the biggest of the Fortune 500. What television station does General Electric own? NBC, good seconds in. NBC, correct. Now, remember, when the Today Show comes on, they say live from where? Rockefeller Plaza. And then when Tom Brokaw go off, watch as the camera fades away and you see GE's name at the top of Rockefeller Plaza. General Electric is the same as Exxon Mobil. So General Electric is number 1, Exxon Mobil is number 3. But it's the same people. J.P. Morgan, Chase Manhattan, same people. Citicorp is the left side of the Rockefeller family. My only point is that we try to teach that though there's 5 or 6 cereal boxes on the shelf or 30 different brands, there are only 3 companies making them. So we want our children to be able to understand the corporate side of enterprise. And that would mean they would study big enterprise, and that would make them understand why it's problems on little enterprise. Now, if you got a sheet of paper, write this down for me. Put 0.1 on this side. In fact, I don't know if I have a felt pen. Anybody got one of those markers? Let me see if I got one in my pocket. No. Yeah, let me see, something that would, I don't know if they will or not, let's see. You took a sheet of paper. Yeah, there we go. You put 01, and at the bottom of that you put 84. Okay, and then on this side you put 99.9, and here you put 16. Now this is why we have a problem. Thank you. The problem is that 0.1% of the people control 84% of all of this and all of that. So then the problem is when you got 99 people splitting 16 cookies. Now imagine I took 84 cookies and put over there with 1/10 of a person. There ain't gonna be no fighting over there, because it's enough for all 1/10 of a person to live forever and their greatest grandchildren. But over here it's arguments, because 99.9 is arguing over 16% of the housing, 16% of the health care, 16% of the school resources. So there seems to be a never-ending series of problems over here, because it was never enough to solve the amount that was left over. That's the wealth issue. Our community doesn't discuss the wealth issue, but they all know Jesus went to the table of the money lenders and turned it out. But when I ask who's Lazar Perez or Barney Solomon Brothers or Payne Weber or Merrill Lynch or Lazar Perez, and other people say, I don't know. But these are the money lenders who today reign, that were trying to be overthrown centuries ago. They never went away. They didn't lose that war they wanted. In fact, let me try something like this one more time. Let's see here. Y'all got to help me on this one. This is a little metaphysical abbreviation. What do people say when they see each other? Oh, yeah, y'all scaring me now. Hell, oh. Now, okay, now help me one more time. They say there's some place where everybody messed up at. And they say probably where they are, they call it hell. And then they say that they're all a little evil. And then we say, who we are is that this is our thing. Uh-oh. Can't see that. Oh, I guess you can. What do we say about ourselves?
Nobody's perfect.
Now that's where we have unity. We are all unified in that, oh great. We are all unified in that we are vulnerable to error. Now I want to hear you tell one or the other of you that I don't like that nigga because when we're dealing with humans, we're only dealing with percentages anyway. Okay, you with me there? See, sometimes people put false pressure on other people that got nothing to do with values. I'm at a college. One group at this table don't eat pork, and this group over here eating pork chops. This group over here said they're better than that group because they ate pork. And then I asked this question: which would you rather have, a lion vegetarian or a truth-telling pork eater? Because what we're really looking for is truth. Whatever you eat, whenever you finish, just be honest. So we don't want false pressure in the neighborhood. Something about me that's better than you, when what we're arguing over ain't the issue. If somebody wants to smoke or drink or whatever, that don't mean it's right. I'm not going to condone any of that. That's not even a good example, but it's about the preferences, you know. I gave up probably some jobs people would wish they had, not to be in the hands of the wrong people. And but my point has something to do with what we've been able to do with this. And then, of course, the opposite is what? Now, if you call me, you hear me say good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I don't greet another person with hello. When people are hanging around me, in a little bit, I kind of step to them and say, man, don't say hello, because I don't think that's our thing. Now, if you look back in the dictionary of symbols and you look up the essence of this word, you'll find something equating cave and hell. You'll find something that says that the opposite of earth, the opposite of strike heaven is earth, right? Now, So now, here's a little thing here. Y'all tell me, is this true or not true? Are we trying to avoid going someplace, or unfortunately, are we all there already? Because none of us are perfect, and we're dealing with the percentage of good in each one of us. So it isn't that Billy's only a 40, because if you're an organizer and you walk up on Billy and he's a 40, your goal is to get him to be 60% better. If he's a 10, you want him to be a 20. If you need 100, you might need a 30, a 40, and a 30. You might have a 90 and a 10. So like when you do in politics, you have numerical values for touching an area. You give your principals points. So say the head guy might be 5, the next one 3, next one 4, and you rate an area as needing 15 points. You have to come up with the combination of the values to equal how many points you think it would take to win a certain area. Well, it's the same in organizing for good. You make some subtle, not a conclusion, but assumption about the good-sided value of a person. And you can't say they're all wrong, because all wrong is what we have in common. All right, maybe I better go there some other day. But you understand what I'm saying? We got to square up some loose ends on terminology. All right. Rich people are moving. In Illinois, say in '82, the Forbes 400 richest people, and I teach our people to know the richest people in their area. Say in '82, Illinois had 15, but by '98 it was down to 12. Notice California went from 56 to 90. New York went down. You got New York in '81. New York went down to, where's New York? Right here, 51. And they all start going west. So now California in the 2003 had 110 out of 400 of the Forbes richest people in America. There's only 2 blacks, Oprah Winfrey and Robert Johnson, who has sold BET. Who he sell BET to? And who owns Viacom?
Sumner Redstone.
Summer Redstone. Very good, very good. We need to know who these people are. It's very important that we know who they are. Okay, and it's very important that we teach our youth. Now, as bad as you might not want to ever talk about these people at all, what I would want you to know about these people is that in 1986, for some reason, the U.S. government gave them the right to sell crack cocaine. Now, this impact of crack cocaine was to make sure that enough people went to prison to pay off. Say gold is down and stocks is down, but prisons are up. So you got to manufacture the amount of people you need to go in there. Someone say, what are they doing building all of those? So then all of a sudden they're all crowded. That's because they told the law enforcement to pick them up. So a person with a lot of cocaine, pure, would get less time than somebody with a little crack cut down. Because it was about a game. It was a game. Now a white guy working for the San Jose Mercury News, he figured out that the whites were plotting to undermine black neighborhoods with crack cocaine. They were promoting crack when crack wasn't even on the street. There was an orchestrated desire. How do they get them into ecstasy? And how do they know something new is out? Because the media promotes it.
Right.
And then you look up the white guy that finds this out, writes the story for his paper, and what did they do to reward him? They fired him. Maxine Waters, the congresswoman, pushed and went to Latin America and eventually found that the Justice Department, William French Smith, authorized the CIA not to report cocaine dealings of any of the people working with it, and we ruined thousands of young black lives on an agreement with the government. And it's like in Cincinnati, where they called the government to help a young man who needed help, not to be arrested, and they decided they're going to beat him into submission. And they didn't call him because he committed any crime. And so people are going to stop calling him. Very important. I showed this to students. This is John Kennedy laying on the autopsy table. This is an iron bar using to pull his scalp over his face So you can't see that big hole on the side of his head, because they want to say the guy shot from this way, and not that big peeling off of that head you saw a couple of weeks ago when they reran this on television for the 40th anniversary. But what I shared to you about it is, it's about a white man being killed by other white men. It really didn't have anything to do with us, but other white people couldn't get it figured out. Still to this day, whoever did it is still out there. And whoever did a series of them, but they even did the whites. So there's something that even subjugates other whites. And it's a black and white thing, but if a white, this guy Howard Dean, if he keep messing with Bush and them, I think they're going to give him the Wellstone. Now, we lost Ron Brown on a plane crash. We lost Mickey Leland on a plane crash, who was a congressman from Houston. I'm sorry. Up under Clinton, Ron Brown. That's right, Mr. Smooth. Yeah, but we lost him. In this country, this has a great impact. Something called Masons. The Masons represent the cornerstone of the American society. Now, I would say that if I was to imitate a cornerstone, I would do this. And the rest of the building would be on my back. I'm not the highest guy. I'm not the richest guy. I'm just a strong thing that could be a pillar that can let higher things stand on top of me. So when they formed this government and they put that pyramid on the dollar and they put other things, they drew upon symbolism that represented a relationship with a secret society. It wasn't democracy, it was secrecy. And they put things on it that did not relate to who they were. And they talk about how they wrote the Constitution, how they came up with the separation of powers. Semper Fidelis, the founder of the Marines, is a Mason. John Marshall, you go to downtown Chicago, you got John Marshall Law School. That's the father of the judiciary. I'm out in California, you go to Burbank, that's after Burbank the Mason. You go to, what they call that, Carson City, that's Carson City the Mason. You go to Houston, that's Sam Houston the Mason. The cities are named after the people who were the founders. Go to Chicago, Dearborn Street, Major Dearborn, who was a big Masonic man with Washington, and Pulaski, the street, Pulaski, Diagonal Street. Big time Mason, right in Washington. There's a huge statue of Pulaski, like right in front of the University of Chicago. There are evidences of these people leaving things. Washington, D.C. is in the shape of a diamond. If you go to Virginia, right outside of Washington, there's the George Washington Masonic Memorial Temple, sitting way up on a hill on 1500 King Street, meaning something, because next to King come Prince. And then you look around D.C., they got Prince William County, Prince George County, all names of people I swore they said they were breaking away from. They said they was breaking away from them. But when they got here, they named everything after them. This is another one of those myths. It really was about expanding the real estate base. And then the guy didn't even show up at the right spot. Columbus never came here. But they still give it to him because they into myths like Jessica Lynch. Jessica Lynch shot her way out of heathens in Iraq, and she said, I didn't even shoot my gun. But to make sure she didn't talk early on, they said she's suffering from memory loss. Then they played her up as a hero, gave her $1 million, and the guy who did the shooting, when they looked in the paper, they wrote him up as dead. That's some deep stuff. That they can create a myth right in front of us. The myth to go to war, which had cost over 450 Americans' lives, was fabricated. That's right. And they stood up and admitted that what they said wasn't true. But then this is what puzzles me. Then they go and give them $87 billion to work with it. That's more than they give any of us for anything we've done ever. They're going to spend more on something for them than they're going to spend on for you with your money on something they said wasn't even true. So when it looks like they're really disagreeing, notice at some point how they all get in on it together. When the Democrats get together, they're pointing on it, yeah, you say you didn't like the war, but you voted for it, And they believe that it's all right for your actions not to match your words. In fact, we call it like this. One day, I was talking to Jesse Jackson on the radio, say I have it on a tape here. And I said, Jesse Jackson, were you at that secret council on foreign relations meeting?